Okay, this is step 2 for the scales assignment. If you followed the steps in step 1, should be about right here where you've got the pulverserator loaded with the piano sound, and you created 3 note tracks over here. So to get started, we just need to double click on the top line in that first square, and it will create a red zone like this. And this is a part of the note track, but you actually have to double click on it again to open up the note track, and you'll know you're in when you see this like kind of sideways piano thing going on. I'm going to go ahead and just stretch this up so that I can make it a little bit bigger on my screen. And one thing you can do is you can click these plus or minus signs right here to zoom in or zoom out. You can see it kind of makes the keys a little bit wider there. And you can also scroll up or down this way. What you want to be able to see on your screen is C4. And you want to be able to see all the way to C5. So you can see those are the only ones that are labeled right there. And that should mean that your scroll wheel or whatever is about in the middle. Okay, so just kind of look for that C4 and C5 right there. And to program in a note, we're going to start our very first note on C4. So you're just going to come straight out from where it says C4, and that's that little square right there. Double click on that. Okay, and that creates a note. One other thing I want to do before we kind of get started making these scales is, by default, the grid, that's what all these separations are, is going to be set to what we call smart. And what smart does is it gives you more lines if you zoom in, less lines if you zoom out. And I want it to stay fixed. I want it to stay to a set number of grid separations regardless of what kind of zoom I'm in. So I'm going to click on where it says smart and go down, and I want 1/16. Okay, so that's about in the middle of the list there, 1/16. Not 1/16 T, but just 1/16. And what that's going to do is it's going to split this bar into 16 grid sections. And it will stay locked in that even if I zoom out. So that's going to be a useful thing. So our first note for all of our scales is going to be C4, and then from there we're just going to follow the step pattern in each scale to build the scale. So let's go back to our scales sheet here. And let's look at our first scale, the major scale we need to enter in. Its step pattern goes whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Or you can just say 2 wholes and a half, 3 wholes and a half. Okay, so remember that. 2 whole half, 3 whole half. So what that means is, from this note to the next note in the scale, we need to do a whole step. And a whole step is not the very next one, but the one after that. So it's like you skip one square and go to the next one, and that spacing is a whole step right there. And remember, another name for a whole step is major second. Our next one is also going to be a whole step. One after that is a half step. So now we've got the first half of the scale. It goes whole, whole, and then half. All right, and then the end of the scale, remember, goes 3 whole steps and then a half step. So from this note, we got to go up whole step again, whole step again, and then a half step. Okay, so this is a major scale ascending. We started on one note and we chose C4 to start on, and then we just followed that step pattern up. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And a good indicator that you did it right is if when you get to the top note, it is C5. So you started on C4, you ended on C5. That's a good sign that you did it right. If you end up on something else, like this note or that note, you might have made a mistake somewhere in the middle here. So just kind of double check that and make sure that you've got that right. That's the ascending major scale. Now we're going to write the descending major scale. So to start, I'm just going to make another C on top. Okay, so I'm just doubling up that note, and then I'm going to now just play the same notes but going down instead of up, right? So you really just kind of make, oops, I skipped a grid there. You're making a mirror image of the other side. Okay, so it should look like a completely symmetrical kind of step pyramid if you did it right, starting and ending on the same note. And if we play it back, it should sound like that. Now, if yours is playing back really fast, I think the default setting on BPM, remember that's beats per minute, is 120. And so yours might have sounded more like this. But it's kind of too fast to really process what's going on there. So if it says 120, just double click on that and let's go to something like 60. I think it's a little bit more reasonable. You can actually hear each individual note. Okay, so that's the major scale. So to close out this window, because we're done with the major scale, just go back up to the very top, and that red bar you can see now has all these little dashes in it that represent the notes that we have programmed down here. Okay, so go to that top bar and just double click on that again, and it will collapse back down to that small shape. Okay, and so we're done with the major scale. The next scale we're going to create is the Dorian scale. So I'm just going to come down to this next track, and I'm going to double click there and make that red box. And one more thing I'm going to do before I open up that box is right over here you can see that all of these note tracks have a white dot next to them. That means when I push play, it's going to play back that box. And that wasn't a big deal when we only had one scale program, but now that we're programming multiple, I only want to hear the scales that I'm working on. So if you click on that dot next to the track, you can see that track gets these lines in it. And what that means is it's now deactivated. It won't play back when we push play. It's still there, and we can turn it back on later, but for now we're just going to turn it off. Okay. Let's go inside this one now, and again, kind of same thing. I'm going to just expand our view a little bit here, and zoom in just a little bit, and then make sure I can see C4 and C5. Okay. And again, our first note's going to be C, so just go straight across from C4. And let's look, the pattern, the step pattern for the Dorian scale, remember this one is a symmetrical scale. And so it's kind of cool that way, a whole half, and then 3 holes, and then half whole. So it is going to be the same going forward or backwards. That's what I mean by symmetrical. So whole half, 3 holes, half hole. Okay, so there's our hole. We're going to do a half, and then 3 holes. 1, 2, 3, and then a half, and then a hole. Okay? And again, look to see if you ended up on C5 to make sure you got that right. And then descending, same thing as before. We're just going to make a mirror image of that. And you kind of see this light bar lines up. It'll help you find the right note. Play that one back. Okay, it's kind of a sadder sounding scale, and that's one of our minor scales, so it's got kind of a little bit more of a sad sound. I think it's a pretty kind of sad though. So we'll go ahead and close this one up now. Just go to the top and double click on that. We've got the Dorian scale. The last one we're going to do is the Mixolydian scale. So again, just come over here. We're going to turn off the Dorian scale now. Go to the Mixolydian, double click on that, double click on it again. Stretch this out. Zoom in a couple times. Make sure I can see C4 and C5. And start on C. And let's look at our pattern for this one. Mixolydian scale. 2 holes and a half, 2 holes and a half, and then a hole. Okay, 2 hole half, 2 hole half, hole. Let's do it. So 2 holes, then a half, and 2 holes, and a half, and then a hole. Okay, come back down, repeat that top note. Should look like that. Mixolydian. And it sounds like this. Good. And that's it for this. Once you're done with that, you can just collapse that down, and you've got 3 scales that you've programmed in. You learned how to use the note track, which is new on this assignment. And you also learned a little bit about this new instrument called the Pulverserator, which I think we're going to be using more in the coming assignments. So a good little introduction to a bunch of different things here. Once you're done with that, as far as turning it in goes, just like before, you'll go to Canvas and just enter in the text box your audio tool username, and I can go and check it as long as you've included me as an editor. And that's it for this assignment. Good luck.